Hi, Northwood students. For our last lesson, we are going to talk about the string instruments. So what is a string instrument? Well, string instruments are instruments that use the vibration of a string to make sound. So we've talked about how sound is produced by vibrations. On a woodwind instrument, it's usually the reed that vibrates. On brass, it's your lips and the mouthpiece. On percussion, you're either hitting or shaking something, and on a string instrument, the string is actually vibrating to make the sound. The player will make the string vibrate by plucking, strumming, or using a bow, and the vibrations will amplify through the body of the instrument. How do you change notes on a string instrument? Generally, a string instrument has more than one string, so you can change, or each string has a different note that it's tuned to, so you could play different strings. The thicker the string is, the lower the notes will play. The thinner the string is, the higher it'll play. So just as we've talked about, bigger things make lower sounds. Smaller things make higher sounds. You can also press your finger or something else on the string and it changes the length of the string, which will therefore change the sound wave. So if we see here, this is an example, the big long sound wave. If you were to push down on a string, now it makes your sound waves smaller. So instead of going like this, now we're going, if we press it in this earlier spot, we have even smaller. And there it goes on and on and on. I have my ukulele here. You can hear, without pressing down on anything up here, this is, so the string is vibrating from here to where my thumb is. Now, if I put my finger on the first fret, it's a little bit higher. So the higher up on the instrument I go, the closer to the body. That means that this vibration is going from here to here. That's all that's vibrating back and forth. Whereas if I don't have anything down, it's from my thumb all the way up here. So it's going to be lower. So if you put your finger down on there, that's going to make it shorter, and which makes the note higher. Some common types of string instruments that you've probably heard of are violin, viola, cello, upright bass, or a double bass is another name for it, acoustic guitar, electric guitar, and the electric bass, ukulele, and harp. So strings in the orchestra. So these four instruments are what make up the string section of an orchestra. These instruments are all very, 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 very old. The violin, viola, and cello, so you pronounce that cello, all go back to the 16th century. The double bass or the upright bass, same instrument, go back to the 15th century. So the violin is the smallest, followed by the viola, cello, then double bass. A string quartet is made up of two violins, a viola, and a cello. Typically, a string or an upright bass is not included in a string quartet because of the deep sound that it makes. Sometimes it just can alter the sound of the
Strangely, I learned a lot about creativity from someone who is...
So we have two violins here, violin, violin. They're using a bow, and the bow rubs on the string and creates vibrations from the rubbing of the hair on the bow and the string. That was the cello, viola, cello, viola, two violins. You can see they're moving their hands up and down on the fretboard of their instrument, and that is how they're going to change their notes. So the violin is the smallest one. Another name for it is a fiddle. So if you've heard of a fiddle, it's just also a violin. It's the smallest one there. It can be played by bowing or plucking with your fingers, and it has four strings. You play it by you put your chin right here in that chin rest, and you hold it out. So you can see she's going to be using a bow. can see she's moving her fingers up and down in there using the bow. You might have also noticed she had something that kind of goes on her chest underneath. That's just another comfort to make it so it doesn't hurt as much if you're holding it, if you're going to be playing it for a long time. Viola is a little bit bigger than a violin. So this is a violin on top and the viola is underneath here. It also has 4 strings. It uses the chin rest. It reads, the violin reads treble clef, where the viola reads a special clef called a C clef, where the notes are slightly moved on the clef because it extends the range for the notes that they typically play. So you can hear it sounds lower than the violin. You see him shaking his hand, and I think the girl was doing that too. That just makes it's vibrato, so it makes the note shake a little bit. The cello is even bigger than both the violin and the viola. It's got a kickstand and rests on the ground, and it can also be played by bowing or plucking. The musician will be sitting in a chair, and it rests up here on them. You can see. This is a piece that is probably the most famous, well-known cello pieces ever written. That piece has been played in commercials, on movies. It's probably the most famous cello piece ever written. So double or upright bass, it's a string instrument that stands about 6 feet tall, so it's very big. The musician is either standing and playing it, or they might sit on a tall stool. It's often played in jazz ensembles as well as orchestras and string quartets. You might also see it in a concert band setting as well. Look at her using her bass as a percussive instrument. Anything that can be hit or shaken could be a percussive instrument. You probably notice on there's not frets on there like on my ukulele. You can see these are the frets, the different lines that are going across. They don't have those on violins, violas, double basses, so the musicians have to know exactly where to put their hands on there to get the right note. So some other string instruments, acoustic and electric guitar. So acoustic guitar means there's no electricity to go into it. It's only amplified by the body of the instrument. The electric guitar has an electric amp set up to it, so it can change the sound, volume, etc. Both have 6 strings. So this group is using one acoustic guitar, and they are using it as a string instrument, but also percussive instrument as well. Let's hear it here. Watch right here.
Now and then I think of when we were together.
So they used, this group is actually really cool, they used that one guitar to do all of that. Here's an example of an electric guitar so you can hear how it sounds different after the ad. So on an electric guitar, it doesn't have the body to amplify to. If you don't have it plugged in, it won't make any sound really. But when it's plugged in that way, you can change how it sounds. You can, the whammy bars, you can make it do that kind of wah-wah sound with it. And you can change the brightness of it. And you have a lot of different options with the electric guitar. And obviously, you can make it super loud. The electric bass is similar to the electric guitar, except it plays much lower notes. A bass can have between 4 and 6 strings. Plugs into an amp that can change the volume, the sounds, etc. Things like that. So just like an electric guitar can. That's probably the most recognizable bass riff there is. So ukulele looks like a small guitar, but only has 4 strings. Originated from Hawaii. They do have different size ukuleles. They have soprano, alto, tenor, and or soprano, alto, tenor, concert ones. So they have different sizes.
Wise men say only fools rush in, but I can't help falling in love with you.
So it kind of has that light islandy sound to it because it does come from Hawaii. And then a harp comes in a lot of different sizes, and therefore there's many different numbers of strings it could have depending on how large or small the instrument is. Kind of has that heavenly sound to it. It goes all the way back to 3500 BC, and variations of the harp has been found all around the world. So it's not anywhere specific. It's just a harp instrument. It's a universal instrument. Usually it's plucked or strummed. You can see there's tuning pegs up here. There's a head, the foot pedals. Let's listen to an example of a harp. There's a lot of strings in a harp that you have to remember where they are and how to pluck it. It's a very challenging instrument to play, but it's so pretty. So these were our 4 instrument groups. If you have any questions or any things you want to share with me, maybe you have some of these instruments at home, please email them to me or send me a message so I know that you enjoyed this, and I hope that you are getting along at home just fine. I miss making music with all of you, and I can't wait to see you guys again soon.